Welcome to Education in Focus. I'm Eliana Kernodle. The University of California, Los Angeles is just the latest school to come into conflict with the Trump administration. Joining me to tell us more about this is Esther Wickham, education reporter for the Center Square. Esther, can you tell us a little bit about what's led to this conflict?
Yeah, thanks, Eliana. So, for context, a few months back, the funding freeze came from the Trump administration to UCLA over the fact that they violated federal civil rights laws, specifically the Equal Protection Clause under the 14th Amendment and under Title VI, the civil rights law, claiming that there was, anti-Semitism, there was bias on campus, and UCLA didn't really do anything about it. Students were being harassed. A lot of stuff has been going on specifically since the October 7th, 2023 start of the Israel-Hamas War. And so we've seen across the nation, there are a lot of pro-Palestinian protests. But on top of that, even post-protest kind of season, there has been an increased level of harassment or hate towards Jewish and Israeli students on campus. And so the Trump administration saw this continuing on not only other Southern California colleges, but also UCLA. And so they, withheld funds. And just continuing on in that story, they have now suspended additional research funding from UCLA over the same claims of anti-Semitism. And so we kind of see this response from multiple different sides. Specifically within this story, Governor Gavin Newsom of California called this freeze a cruel manipulation, stating that, the Trump administration is using these Jewish students to withhold this important and critical funding from UCLA.
And one of the professors who works in a department affected by these grants also uh, commented on this. What did he have to say?
Yeah, so Dr. Judea Pearl, he's the director of the UCLA Cognitive Systems Laboratory. He took to X to kind of respond to this suspension in funding and the reasons behind it. And within the story, I quote him basically saying, it's unfortunate that these science departments, these important research funded departments, are essentially getting scrutinized and getting the heat from other departments or from political activism that's happening on campus in general. He says it's unfortunate that these sciences are penalized for the bad behavior of not non-science departments. So essentially, these departments that don't rely on, the National Science Foundation, which is critical federal funding that's been suspended. And essentially, these political activists are hijacking these research funding programs, and this professor is an Israeli American, so it's like he has some very strong opinions about what's happening on campus, but he still believes that this important research funding is necessary to further development within those various departments.
And can you break down how much funding is being withheld and what specifically it's coming from?
Yeah, so a few days after the suspension of the funds was announced, UCLA, which was actually great with transparency, they released the full list of each grant average and how much, what exactly the grant was and how much it was being funded by the federal government. So essentially, as of now, around 800 grants have been frozen. So 300 grants from the National Science Foundation, 500 from the National Institute of Health, and others. So as a whole, each grant, kind of looking at the list, they approximate the range between $20,000 to $30,000, so totaling around 200 million. There isn't an exact number, but yeah, around $200 million total is what has been frozen, and that's only just the research funding, the research federal funding from the administration.
And is there any kind of next steps going forward? Do we know what we can expect?
So, as of now, aside from the K through 12 education funding that we've talked about with the Trump administration kind of giving that back, there has been kind of like a quota that the Trump administration has been giving these universities, saying, this grant freeze is not a budget cut or is not, being taken from you. It's simply being put on hold. So, for example, the administration is requiring an interim financial report. So this kind of goes back to, even like I said, with the funding freeze for K through 12 education across the country. They want specifics of like, what is this funding going towards? Is it actually going towards important research, or is it going towards liberal left agendas that obviously the Trump administration would not want to support with federal funding? So the interim financial report, they are requiring that within 30 days of when they suspended the money. So as of the beginning of, or the end of July, beginning of August, 30 days detailing all project expenses to date. And this was sent out by the vice chancellor for research and creative activities to UCLA students, just keeping up transparency, letting them know what's happening. So that's kind of the latest news on that. They want to know what specifically is happening with this funding, and then we'll go from there to kind of see if they're going to give the money back. But as I said before, Governor Newsom came out with a statement saying that these critical research dollars for funding are important because they go towards important research. And as he said, it makes the country more safe if we have this important research. And for the Trump administration, he says, to take this away, it makes the country less safe. It's a cruel manipulation to use Jewish students' real concerns about anti-Semitism on campus as an excuse to cut millions of dollars in grants that were being used to make all Americans safer and healthy, Newsom says. So again, correcting that language of this is frozen money, it's not being cut officially, but we'll see, because Trump has been known to actually cut funding if they don't follow through with their requirements, because they're really cracking down when it comes to spending and federal funding, to see what actually happens with this UCLA education funds.
Well, Esther, thank you for your insights on this story. You can follow this story and more on education at thecentersquare.com.